Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Lianne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified Master Neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey, we are so excited to be back here with you this week. We have some powerful information to bring you about resting. And there are so many holidays going on right now, religious celebrations, and it's important to know that it's okay to rest. So we're going to dive into that. And I have to tell you, as a lifelong high achiever, I definitely have not given myself permission to rest. I tend to overcommit. There are a lot of neural networks in there that way that I have improved on levels and levels and levels, and I still get to grow in this area because, we tend to think that it's the hustle that's going to get things done for us. And it's a message that is heard and preached a lot and is experienced especially in our North American culture. Now, I also live in South America and have spent time in Europe, and it's a very different way of doing things. They don't view things with the same hustle culture that we do, and yet all kinds of things get accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And some of my best mentors have really leaned in and said, hey, give yourself time to recalibrate, to recuperate, to refresh, to renew. These are important things. So yeah, take us away, Lianne. What have you experienced?
Well, I don't know if the listeners know that I guess at the point of recording, I am 30 weeks pregnant. And I have to say that, when I chose my word for 2023, I leaned into simplicity for this exact reason, right? Because especially when you are used to let's say maybe doing more things or maybe having the schedule like a little bit more full and those kind of things, as you enter pregnancy, you just don't have necessarily the same energy. Running after a toddler and being pregnant, like this pregnancy has definitely been very different than my first pregnancy. And so it took me some time to really adjust to that, right? To adjust to giving myself permission, right? To have more rest. And, as you were saying, Carol, about, the difference from Chile and Europe, like even when I think about how much vacation time a lot of individuals might get, right, is going to look very different. I know in Europe, there's a lot more vacation that's often incorporated in the working, in the contracts. It's very common that, and I'm going to say, especially women, right, with young families, often will work more part-time, right? Maybe 3 or 4 days a week. I'm just looking, my cousins that live in England, and it seems to be a lot more of the norm versus in North America, doing more of, 5 days and these, 8-hour days and things like that. And so leaning into, like, when we have a weekend like this coming up, many of us will have 4 days off, and looking at what does that get to look like. And what hits me, because I know I was very guilty of this, especially working in school. It was like, I'm going to work hard and then play hard. I'm going to work really, really, really hard. And then you get these breaks, and then you either play hard, which then you don't allow yourself time to rest, and then you end up getting sick after the fact, or you crash. I remember this happened to me when like almost every Christmas break. And this is a very common thing for a lot of teachers, right? Because you just kind of like, you go, and you have now 2 weeks off, and your body just crashes itself. So I know we're leaning into inviting to rest over these next couple days, and the invitation to look at how do you integrate rest into your regular day? How do you integrate rest in your
Yeah.
regular week? Like, so that it's not just these times of year when you get to rest, but that rest becomes an integrated part of your life and your schedule and how you set yourself up for success all the time to avoid the go, go, go crash that we tend to notice a lot of times with high achievers.
It's so true. And, that go, go, go crash and just all of the things that come to play, it really brings home the busyness
Mm-hmm.
and the distraction that happen when we are overcommitting. For me, that's my
Yeah.
word, to release, because really what it boils down to, what you need to know, is it's your brain trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And that is, you hear this all the time, but the brain's job is to protect the beautiful, powerful, automated system we have. However, we have limiting beliefs and faulty things that are primarily from our childhood, even up to the age of 7, they're saying now. But over 90% of our limiting beliefs are from our childhood, and they're things that are no longer serving us. And yet, that's what we default to. And the example is, you and I are breathing right now. We're not even thinking about it because it's automated.
Mm.
And that's what happens when we go to make decisions. Up to 97% of our daily decisions are made from our subconscious. It's running the show. It's driving the ship. And the important thing to know is that it's going to be guiding you into doing things that are going to protect what's familiar, because that's what the brain sees as safe. When its job is to protect this automated system, it's going to keep the things that are wired in, that are familiar, that are patterns, good or bad. It's going to keep those safe. So I know for you and I, Alex, it's certainly been, a story as high achievers where we allow ourselves to get busy.
Yeah.
My calendar's booked out
Yeah.
6 weeks right now. And am I really focused in on the actions that I want to take every day, and giving myself permission to have that rest time, to slow down, let my body recharge and my brain recharge, because the brain learns in a pattern like this. And we often don't take that into account. And so we can have a very steep learning curve and then not give the time when it's getting instilled, incorporated, processing. Think about what you're learning right now. And we're all on a learning journey. For me, it's really brought home in languages and the other languages that I speak. I will be traveling back and I will be operating entirely in Spanish, and it will take some brain
Yeah.
processing time.
Yeah.
I will have some mental fatigue from that, but that's where it's getting reinstilled, reincorporated. And it's so important when we understand these pieces of how our brain works and why it works the way it does, so that we can actually take the time to rest. And what happens out of that? What happens out of that, Alex? I can tell you what happens on my end. What do you see happen when you take that rest time? What's the result for you?
I mean, I always think about it like running a half marathon. I don't
Yeah.
know, if the listeners have run half marathons, like there's one thing when you run a 5K, when you kind of just want to get it done and you're like, okay, how fast can I do this 5K? And when
Yeah.
you run a half marathon, I haven't run marathons yet, so I've run the half marathons. It's you kind of just settle in for the journey, right?
Mm.
Like you're like, okay, I'm going to be running for the next couple hours or several hours, depending on, your pace. And you
Yeah.
kind of just go along with it. And so you kind of have these little milestones and you rest, right? I mean, there's different ways of going about running. I know myself, oftentimes for myself, my milestones will be the rest stations.
Yeah.
And that's when I will take some time to
Yeah.
really slow down, drink my water, get the hydrate to replenish my body so that I'm good to go for the next couple K before, the next rest station. So honestly,
Yeah.
that's what came to my mind, is that, you
Yeah.
don't just start and finish the race and you're gonna rest at the end, because if that's what happens, you'll just collapse. Right. And you'll see that like in the runners and races, that you're like, unless your body's been trained, and that's a training, right, for that. But I would say, from my observation, right, like that's why they have rest stations built into races,
Yeah.
because to allow for that. Now 5Ks, there's less rest stations than a half marathon. So that's
Yeah.
honestly what came to my mind there, is you're either gonna, I always think about the payoff, right? If you
Mhm.
keep going and going without creating that space for the rest along the process,
Yeah.
that's where, like I was saying before, like the go crash piece is going to happen. Your body keeps score. And so, I've often used my example of, the water cup, where oftentimes what happens is, okay, maybe we wake up rested, and I know that not everybody will wake up feeling rested, and then they
Mhm.
find themselves just like going and going, and then like depleting the water cup, and then
Yeah.
they get below and they keep going, and then they don't allow themselves to refill it. And so my the image that I like to create is you wanting to refill the water bottle throughout the day. And so
Yeah.
whether it's the day, the week, a month, or whatever, really
Whatever.
looking
Yeah.
at how you set yourself up again to continuously replenish yourself and create
Yeah.
those rest periods, and giving yourself permission. Because I'm just thinking, Carol, before we started recording, you shared what was coming up for you, because you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I acknowledge this. I look at my calendar, and
Yeah.
yet when I think about saying no, when I think about looking at it a bit differently, you shared that you have what's coming up for you when you think about that.
Yeah. As I looked at my calendar and everything, I noticed that I have a tendency to overcommit. And then what happens is I lose focus. I
Mm,
get stretched here, there, everywhere. And I'm not really doing those activities that drive forward my life and my business every single day. And so for me, it is a constant recalibrating, it's a constant
mm,
noticing, okay, why am I operating this way? And what do I get to rewire here? Because I have more levels to go of the rewiring process to reprogram my brain to, instead of overcommitting, being very intentional
mhm,
and being happy with that decision. And, if look, for example, for me, one of the things that has happened is for many years, I wasn't giving myself the proper space to rest. And my family was telling me, they were concerned. They were like, and my kids, they were like, you're not doing this the way that's healthy. You're like, you'll be hospitalized and you'll be bouncing back and running the next day, which is okay. That in and of itself is not a bad thing. But what was not good about it was that taking the time to learn, taking the time to say, what got me there? What got me into the breakdown or the burnout? And what's keeping me distracted from doing those things that are really important and that are meaningful to me? Because one of the things that I absolutely love is impacting your life, bringing you this information. And if I'm allowing myself to get distracted from doing that and being in breakdown, then I'm not able to really do what's important to me to bring this to you, to help your life to be abundant and full and deserving and amazing. And so it's something where I also am in the work. I use the tools every day, and I will continue in the work for higher and higher levels of success and for really living fully in this abundant, amazing life that I have. Yeah.
And earlier too, when you were talking, you said, like, as you were looking at your calendar and you thought about creating space, right? You notice like the thought of, well, I'm not doing enough and I should be
Yeah.
doing more. And
Yeah.
so as you're listening, as the audience is listening today, I mean, my invitation is to pay attention to that, right? When you think about taking some time to rest, when you think about scheduling in some downtime, relaxing time, recharge time, whatever you want to call it, pay attention to what comes up, because there's most likely there's some inner critic that's operating there that's actually holding you back from creating that and being able to lean into that, right? And
Yeah.
it's interrupting that story, interrupting that thought pattern and rewriting it, right? Getting clear for yourself why rest is important, why you want to prioritize that.
Yeah.
And, I would say, I love you, the word recalibration, Carol. I would say for the listener, as we enter this longer weekend, to take some time to recalibrate, take some
Yeah.
time to ask yourself, everything I'm booking, is it a priority? And
Yeah.
am I creating enough space for myself to rest, to recharge, to just let the brain rest, right?
Yeah.
In order to
To
optimize, right?
do it.
Really, yeah, and
Yeah.
operate from that an optimized place, right?
And you bring up a really important reminder for me. The intention that I set in doing this work is giving myself permission to
Mhm.
feel good, giving myself permission to rest. Because if I have this old habit and pattern, what I find is I'll go to rest and my mind's going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," it's bouncing off the wall and it's being uncomfortable. And, I'm looking for ways to fill it with activity because that's the familiar pattern. That's
Mhm.
my brain taking me back to safety. And so I not only am doing the rewiring work for the long-term success, but I also am in the moment setting the intention of I have permission to feel good
Yeah,
right now. I
yeah.
have permission to feel good resting right now. And that's been huge, honestly.
Well, and as you said something there about like even creating that space and your brain still going off, when I reached my burnout, my therapist challenged me to create 30% white space in my day.
Mm.
And well, actually, first of all, she said, I want you to create white space in your day. And of course, I came back, well, how much time? Right? To like schedule it in. And she said 30%. She wanted to challenge me. And immediately I went, well, what am I supposed to do with that time? And
Yeah.
and that was part of the stretch. That was part of the challenge of me being able to sit and
Yeah.
do mindless activities, something to allow myself to rest, to just be. And I'm just thinking like hearing even with children, right? Like it's good to let them be bored, because when they are bored, that's when their creativity comes out. And
Yeah.
that's oftentimes when we are so go 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 all the time and we're not allowing ourselves to rest,
Mm.
we have a hard time being creative. We have a hard time accessing,
Yeah.
sometimes that deeper thought, because we're so busy. And so there's just so many positive benefits to, to our productivity, to our health, to our well-being, to even the connection and space that we get to create with
Yeah.
people in our lives and ourselves, that this is why something that we're so passionate about. And we just want to lean into this as you guys head into a long weekend here. So
I know we're wrapping up right now, but you also reminded me that another thing that has been really helpful for me mentally is especially, getting used to a new pattern,
yeah,
training in a new pattern, doing the rewiring work. It's been reminding myself that rest is productive.
yeah.
That's another
Mhm.
thing, giving myself permission and rest is productive. So, for our call to action today, I know that those are two areas that I would really invite you to lean into, giving yourself permission to rest and to feel good resting, and giving yourself the reminder that your rest is actually productive. It's
Yeah.
actually going to enable you to spring forward, propel forward. Yeah.
Beautiful reminder, Carol. I love that. So
Thanks.
as we are wrapping up, do we want to share our gifts with our listeners?
Yes. So jump down there and grab the wealth activation I have for you. It will actually help you reprogram your brain for wealth to start coming in. And I don't want to leave you there. There is even more that goes along with this process. So I invite you to get on a call with me, and I will be happy to answer any questions, share with you about the Diamond Transformation Program, but definitely grab the wealth activation and get started with that. Start bringing in that beautiful, abundance, deserving life that is for you right now. Yeah.
And if you're experiencing any self-doubt, I have the Boldly Own Your Expertise to really bust through that,
Yeah.
and am offering some half-day VIPs for the month of April
Yeah.
before my little one arrives. So definitely, we've got our links below to connect with us, to have conversations with us, to learn more about how you can work with us. And we want to wish you a happy Easter
Yeah.
and enjoy your days of rest ahead of you. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.